Welcome to NEXTGames video on how to solo the Omen mid-tier boss Glassy Gorger. I've done videos before on how to solo Omen for capacity points, cards, and astral detritus, but in this one I will start to cover soloing the bosses, starting with the mid-bosses, and then hopefully showing how to solo some of the final bosses. This is, however, my first attempt at soloing the mid-bosses, and I ended up with Glassy Gorger. You'll see additional videos on the other ones as I attempt those here in the next week or two. For Trust, we will be using Seth to constantly restore HP, MP, and TP to the party. We'll also be using Ulmia for March, Arcella 2 and Korumoru for Haste, Dispel, and Extra Cures, and lastly we'll be using Yoran Oran to keep me alive and constantly get enfeebles off of me. I'm also going NIN Dancer so that I can deal with extra cures and getting rid of enfeebles should the need arise during the boss fight. Before you get to the mid-boss, we need to clear the first 2 floors. While I do that, I will explain what we should expect to see as we're killing the Glassy Gorger. Glassy Gorger's most dangerous move is Quadratic Continuum. It can hit for up to 3,000 damage if it doesn't have 4 shadows to eat it. He also has a tendency to spam TP moves as he gets lower in health, so I recommend you keep Migawari up at all times during this fight. The next move we have to talk about is Blessing Sync. It copies everyone's buffs who is within 10 feet, so make sure you try and position yourself so the fewest amount of trust possible are within that 10 feet range. This is also why we have Arcella and Koru. We need whatever it is he absorbs to be dispelled immediately. This is because absorbing things like March and Haste will make him hit extremely quickly and hard to deal with. His next move is Spirit Absorption. This can one-shot you if you are not at max melee range. You always want to make sure you are standing right at 4 feet distance from target. If you do this, you will not need to worry much about this move. Also note that this move absorbs 1 buff from you quite frequently, so that'll be another thing that Arcella or Koru has to dispel. Stygian Flatus is an AoE move that paralyzes everyone in range. This is normally dealt with pretty quickly by Yoran though, so you don't have to worry too much about this move. The last ability he uses is called Vanity Dive, which is a conal knockback move that is blocked by your shadows. Just make sure he's not facing your trust and you shouldn't have to worry about this move either. We just went ahead and finished the objectives for the first floor, so now we're moving on to the second floor before we finally get to take on the mid-boss. So just to recap, the things we need to really focus on for this fight is keeping Migawari up at all times. That is to deal with Quadratic Conundrum, which can hit for up to 3,000 damage. Additionally, you want to make sure you have Korumoru and Arcella in your group so that they constantly dispel all of the buffs that are being absorbed by both Blessing Sync and Spirit Absorption. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you're always exactly 4 feet away from the NM at all times, so that when he does use Spirit Absorption, it doesn't do as much damage as it would if you were much closer, which could one-shot you. One last thing to keep in mind is he does seem to TP much more frequently as he gets lower in health, so be prepared to deal with that, especially lower than 20% and 10%. He's just going to spam TP moves back to back. You just have to be prepared to keep dealing damage to him and getting through it. We've already gone ahead and beaten this objective for floor 2, so let's go ahead and move on to this mid-boss and see how this goes. Well, that went very well. I was hoping for a Kashar ring, but I'm sure that will come in time as I do a few of these. I doubt I have the ability to take on one of the main bosses, such as Jin, but let's go ahead and keep going and just kind of see how this goes. I do need Jin scales to finish upgrading my armor, so if I could actually solo this, that would be pretty nice. Let's go ahead and see how this goes. I'm going to go ahead and skip past floor 4. Floor 4 is just like floors 1 and 2, where it gives you an objective. Either it's the transcended mobs or regular mobs you need to kill, and then once you meet that objective, you can come up to this final floor. Now that we're on this final floor, here we are with Jin. Looks like we have about 28 minutes remaining at the time that we first engage. So if we can manage to get 2 or 3% per minute, we actually will be able to finish this guy in time. So let's kind of see how this goes. Now this is going to briefly explain the moves that you'll be seeing during this fight, just so you kind of know what's going on here. In general, he's not nearly as bad as many of the Cactuar mobs are. His only real abilities are an AoE throat stab type move that he will use at 75, 50, 25, and 10%. And from my experience, it doesn't actually put you at that low of a hit points. You know, usually 600 to 800, which isn't that low considering most throat stab moves. So it looks like it's blocked by some measure of magic resistance. He will also use perfect dodge once during the fight. In my case, around 80-something%. And then he'll also put up a sphere in response to skill chains or magic damage. And you'll see that sphere right here. That's kind of this purple orb around him. When that is up, all you can do is physical damage. If you try and do any magic damage, or in my case, and most importantly, skill chain damage, it is actually going to heal him for about double the amount of damage that you would have done. This is going to be a very long fight the way it is, so if you start healing him like that, there's no way you're going to be able to finish in time, is what I discovered. I only ended up healing him maybe a handful of times during my fight as I kind of learned the mechanics of it. But even during those handful of times, it probably ended up healing him for close to 100,000 hit points. So I went ahead and fought him for these, close to 28 minutes, learning some different tricks and stuff. And I'm not going to have you sit through the whole thing, but needless to say, he's incredibly easy to fight. I don't think most ninjas that are fairly well geared will have any problems. You just basically, the big problem here is doing enough damage before the timer runs out. In the 28 minutes I have, I only get him to about 40% hit points. At no point was I really in danger of dying during this time. I will say, learning the mechanics of it, etc., probably accounted for maybe 20% more damage that I could have done. So I would say realistically, I probably would have gotten him to about 20% in this 28 minutes if I was really familiar with this fight. So that's just about 20% more damage I need to figure out how to do, whether that's through an Ionic Katana, or I am about to finish the Ambuscade Katana. We'll try those out here in the coming weeks and see if that gives me enough damage output to actually get this done in time. But it does look like, sadly, I'm going to be short by about 20% with the damage I need in order to get this done. I did try doing some skill chains throughout the fight as well. It didn't actually end up working as well as I was hoping. In fact, sometimes he ended up getting the shield up right after the skill chain, so by the time I magic bursted, he ended up healing the magic burst damage. So some of the most recent tricks I've been using in order to get my damage up just weren't quite helpful here as they normally would have been. Additionally, I will say I missed on a ton of my weapon skills. I'd probably say 30% of my weapon skills were a miss. Now, I normally don't experience that, so I think that's just an accuracy thing. I was using some sushi, and for a good portion of the fight, in just my accuracy set. So that not being enough, I very well, in the next fight, may need to add more accuracy to my weapon skill set, just to see if that actually, of course, my overall damage is going to be down for my weapon skills, but perhaps that'll allow me to land more weapon skills and then get enough damage in. So I'll go ahead and try this a few more times and, of course, record them. And hopefully you guys will be seeing a video from me before too long on how to solo Jin on Ninja. I'll go ahead and fast forward to the end of this video just so you kind of see where I was at the end. Appreciate everyone watching. Please post any questions if you have them. I'm going to be going ahead and doing a bunch more Omen runs and posting them as well in regards to the other mid-bosses and end-bosses, so look forward to those in the coming weeks. And we are 24 hours away from an update, so look forward for videos from me on that this week. Everyone have a great week.